Hey everyone, welcome back to John's Watch. Today I'm taking a look at a new game called Deathbound. This game was released on Steam on August 8th, 2024. Its regular price is $38.99 Canadian, or your regional equivalent, and it's developed by Trial Forge Studio and published by Tate Multimedia. This is a one-of-a-kind, party-based Souls-like set in a callous world where faith and science clash, dynamically transform between fallen warriors, all with their own unique skill sets, combat styles, and rich history. Conquer a brutal reality where life and death were never more conflicted. So as it says in the description, this is a Souls-like game. It absolutely is one of a kind. It is incredibly unique. So far I've played just over 2.5 hours of the game, so all the gameplay and my thoughts will be from the fairly early game. I've basically done the first 2 areas and 2 major bosses. And like I said, it is absolutely right. This is a really unique Souls-like. It said in the description it's a party-based Souls-like. Just hearing that, you probably can't quite picture how that works. Basically, you control... It's almost like you're controlling like an empty shell, but it gets inhabited by these 4, at least at the start, 4 fallen warriors. As you're going through the tutorial, you come across dead bodies that have some kind of essence attached to them, and you interact with the essence. You go through a bit of a lore dump for each character, and then you've kind of absorbed and revived almost that fallen warrior. And so on the bottom left of your HUD, you'll see 4 icons for your 4 characters. Basically, if you press any of the D-pad buttons, you will switch to one of those characters. And it's a really clever system, and it's so unique, it really is. Each character has their own individual health and stamina bar, but very interestingly, stamina is tied to health. So basically, as you take damage, your max health will stay the same, but let's say you've taken 2 hits and you're now at half health. That also means that your stamina is now halved. So basically, your stamina bar is only as big as much health as you've got at the time. So if you're full health, you've got full stamina, which is usually, for most of the characters, it feels like about 4 attacks kind of thing, and the stamina's really low. Probably get into that a little bit later. But if you're almost dead, you've probably only got enough stamina for like 1 attack or 1 dodge roll, which sounds like it'd be a bit of a problem, but the developers obviously thought of that. If one of your characters is really low on health and therefore stamina, you can switch to any of your other 3 characters, and if one of them's almost dead, you switch to another one who's full health. You're good to go for a while. But a very clever part of the game is basically when you attack with your active character, it heals the stamina and max health of the sidelined characters. So when you've got one active character, the other 3 are kind of in the back. If you're attacking and landing hits with the active character, the other 3 are going to be healing. So even if you had one character who is really low, you switch and kind of rotate between the other 3 for a little while. Eventually that character is going to be back up at full health. And you've obviously also got your healing. There's, at least at the start, you start with 4 healing items, pretty much your Estus flask. But these are also very unique. You can use them to heal one character, but it also takes away a little bit of health from your other 3 characters. So I found I wasn't using the healing item a ton in this game. I think the last session I played, which was probably about 40 minutes or something, I didn't actually touch the healing item at all. I was just switching characters when they got low and building up their health by using the other characters. You can also chain your character changes with other actions. Basically, if you are attacking, if you attack twice with right bumper, and as your second attack's coming out, if you press left on the D-pad to switch your character, they'll do a special chain attack, a special transforming attack. I can't remember the actual term for it. But basically, your first character will get their attack off, and then they'll switch with the second character, and the second character will do a slightly more powerful attack. And this can work really well. It's quite tricky to get the hang of at the start, and it's a little bit clunky, but if you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. So I'll show the second boss fight right now, and basically if you look at their health bar, I never stopped attacking. Pretty much I was just keeping an eye on my character's health and stamina. And when one of them was out of stamina, I would just chain attack into the next character and just kind of cycle through them the whole time. And I killed the boss in like almost one massive health bar of damage because I just wasn't letting up. And somehow it worked. It felt like I wasn't really focusing on the boss at all. I wasn't really paying attention to what the boss was doing. I was pretty much only looking at my stamina and health bars in the bottom left. So it's a really unique system. I don't fully know how I feel about it right now because it can feel a little bit clunky sometimes. Usually when you swap between characters, especially if you're doing the chain attack swapping, the game like slows down for it. You know, it does like, you know, a little like mini bullet time kind of thing. And it does feel like you get kind of locked in place when you're doing that. Even when you're just changing between characters, you get locked in place. And that's kind of what I mean, where it feels a little bit clunky sometimes. One of the characters has a crossbow, and basically it's got 3 ammo in it at a time, so you can shoot with it 3 times and then you'll have to reload. But when you reload, it's such a slow animation and you stop completely still. And it's so like Dark Souls 1 and 2, where you have to come to a complete stop to drink your Estus, and that feels really tough to go back to after Dark Souls 3 and onwards, Elden Ring, where you can drink your flask and you can still move around a little bit. Like, not a crazy amount, but you can still move a tiny bit. So yeah, going back to quite a stiff animation like that, where you stand completely still to do an action, it does feel a little bit clunky sometimes. I think the combat system definitely takes some getting used to. Like, you can't treat this like just any other Souls-like, where, you know, you can't ignore the party system. You can't just pick your favorite and ignore the others. You do have to use all 4 of them. And I think that's definitely causing some issues for some people. I was looking at the achievements I'd unlocked, and I beat the boss at the end of the tutorial, and you get an achievement for it, and that achievement only has an unlock rate of 39.4%. That means that almost 60%, over 60% of people who started the game have not got past the first boss. And then the second boss is only 27.8% of people have done it. So I think the combat system is really clever, but I think it's probably throwing a few people off. But I think it's pretty clear from the store page, and you know, if you watch trailers and stuff, this isn't going to be exactly like Dark Souls. You know, the movement and the level design is very like Dark Souls. The combat by itself is quite like Dark Souls. You know, you attack with right bumper. If you're playing the knight, you hold left bumper to hold your shield up. You parry with left trigger. But I would imagine there's some people not fully engaging with the party mechanics, and that's probably throwing some people off. So it does take a little bit of learning, but I found it very, very playable, absolutely. The world of the game is really interesting. It's set in kind of like a futuristic city, I guess. It's kind of overgrown in places. It's got like wooden barricades in some places, but then you've also got like push open doors, and you've got doors with key cards and stuff. It's a really interesting blend of, like it said in the description, faith and science. You can tell quite a lot of thought went into the world building, and a ton of thought went into the character building as well. The game is pretty lore heavy. The start of the game is very, very slow paced. Like I said earlier, whenever you unlock a new character into your party, you have to go through a big old lore dump, and especially right at the start of the game, it was so heavily focused on lore and not at all on gameplay that it was a little bit off-putting at first. The balance definitely gets better after probably the 2-hour mark, I would guess. As soon as I unlocked my 4th character, the story and lore kind of petered down a little bit, and it was more focused on the gameplay, which is what I prefer in a Souls-like. But yeah, the start of the game is very, very story intensive. As the description of the game mentions, there's kind of an overarching story of this conflict between life and death. These basically make up 2 religions, I guess, maybe cults, in the game. For example, the first character you start with, Ziêminal, is part of the Church of Death. The other characters are also part of either the Church of Death or the Church of Life. Throne is just your regular sword and shield warrior. Like I said, he can block with his shield, he can parry with his shield. Next, you'll unlock the character of Anna. She is a rogue thief class. She's the one with the crossbow I mentioned earlier. She's also able to backstab enemies. Next, you'll unlock Haudai, who is the Essence Mancer, which is pretty much just the mage class, but he specializes in poison magic. So you can do some pretty fun stuff where you stand far away, you poison an enemy with Haudai, and then you switch to someone else. And the last character I unlocked was Yulia Chevlaskia. I can't quite remember how she said it, but she pronounced it in game. And she's super cool. She's got a spear, and she does her regular spear attacks, like her right bumper spear attack is just a forward poke. Her right trigger heavy attack is like an outward slash, so she attacks in an arc to attack multiple people. Her left trigger attack is she lunges forward and then lunges backwards, so it's really cool. Really useful way of getting out of range of enemies. And so these characters all have their own unique playstyle, they all have their own history and backstory, and they're all voiced, which is a blessing and a curse, because some of the voice acting is really good. I think Throne's voice actor in particular is excellent, and then some of it's really not good. Anna's voice actor, she's got very good emotion, I think, but she puts on such a thick fake like English accent, I guess, like a London accent, and it just takes me out every time.
Take it easy, sister. It takes a bit to sort out our little condition. You'll be fine in a jiffy.
Haudai's voice actor is just not very good, kind of sounds quite stilted, and then Yulia's voice actor is also not great, but again has a really fake Russian accent that like you can constantly hear slipping between like French and Russian.
There is something I must do that is of the utmost importance. Do you know where the Essence Mancers are?
It's not great. So yeah, some of the voice acting is really, really good, some of it's not great, and you do hear them talk quite a bit. Your characters do all talk to each other. Another really unique mechanic is how your party interacts with each other. Like I said, Throne, for example, is part of the Church of Death. Anna is part of the Church of Life. So these characters' ideologies are in complete conflict with each other. And you can actually reorder how you've got your characters positioned in the bottom left diamond of the screen. And basically you can, depending on how you position them, you have synergies between characters and whatever the opposite word of synergy is, you know, like conflict between the characters. And you get various buffs and debuffs depending on which characters are in synergy and which characters are in conflict. There's presumably loads of different combinations of things you can do with this, and I just kind of found one that worked for me, and I'm kind of reluctant to change it around too much because my muscle memory is kind of now like, oh, Anna, my thief, is up on the D-pad, so I don't really want to change that too much, but maybe I would have to later on. Performance-wise, this game runs really, really well. I didn't have to change too many of the settings. I did note that the highest frame rate you can limit it to is 120. There's no unlimited frame rate option, but 120 is plenty. And I think I left pretty much all the settings on high, and I'm pretty much always around 100 FPS, so it's very, very well optimized. It looks nice, but it actually runs really, really well. Pretty much the only criticism I have performance-wise is they've lumped a bunch of settings into one post-processing setting. So I hate when developers do this. They've lumped, I could see definitely vignette and chromatic aberration are all just lumped into post-processing the setting. I fiddled around with it a bit. I immediately dropped it from the highest down to medium, and you can see such a vast difference at how clean the image looks between the highest setting and medium. And I dropped it down to low as well, and it looks like we were losing a bit of shadows or something, a little bit of contrast. It looked quite washed out. So I left that on medium, but I really hate when a bunch of settings get thrown into this one setting because, you know, I want to get rid of chromatic aberration and vignette. I don't like those, but maybe there's another setting I might have left on. Probably not. I probably don't use like any post-processing settings. But yeah, if you want the game to look better, turn that down to medium or low, whatever looks best for you, because yeah, on high it's got some pretty yucky settings. There you go, those are my thoughts on Deathbound after playing for 2.5 hours. I think I'm probably gonna try and play more of it. It's, you know, it's not perfect. It feels pretty good to play. Sometimes it feels a little bit janky and clunky and bulky. So I think I'd like to try and play more of it. I just have so many games to cover right now, I don't have time to stick with one game, unfortunately. But definitely let me know what you think if you've played any more of Deathbound, if you've played the same amount of Deathbound as me. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!